watching the first time.
You're new here, aren't you?
First time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the first time. We are veteran Star Trek podcasters watching Babylon 5 for the very first time, searching for those Star Trek-like messages, trying to dig them out of this series, applying that analytical lens that we have gained over our years in podcasting about Star Trek, and ultimately trying to decide if we even like the series at all or not.
And while this is not a Star Trek podcast, we are Star Trek podcasters, and so those references are going to make their way into the show. In fact, I think a lot of them might actually make them into this show. It's going to be a challenge because Brent and I play the rule of 3. We each only get 3 apiece references to Star Trek through the entire episode. Bartering is an option and may possibly be on the table this time.
And I will make you guys a promise. I know there was an episode a couple weeks ago where I was just like, I don't even care. I'm going to use all the Star Treks, and then I'm going to use all of them, and I'm going to use all of yours. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to abide by the rules this time, Jeff.
That's good. I had to hit a lot of buttons. It was like 2 weeks ago, and I had to hit all these buttons because you just kept going.
I used all of mine, and then I used all of yours, and I think I used some like rollover buzzes from previous episodes.
We have the most incredible community out there that listens to us, who watches us on YouTube, and I've got a couple things I want to share from them. The first one is from our Twitter at Babylon First. You can follow us there. There's nothing for me to say on this one. This is just one for you to go and look at sometime. But Carl's Web at WebCarls with a K on Twitter, and Gail at B5Raven shared some super cool, some amazing cosplay photos of them as different instances, but as Vorlon. They were on stage at cons in the late 90s. Yeah, as Kosh and Vorlons. Super cool. Super cool.
Okay, I have a question. I've been thinking about this recently. Are there Babylon 5 specific conventions? Like, I know there are Stargate conventions. Obviously, there are Star Trek conventions. But are there actual Babylon 5 conventions out there?
And if there aren't, should there be? Maybe we should.
Is the fandom not large enough to handle its own convention and come together?
Sounds like we might have a task in front of us.
Yes, and we have like 2 years to get it planned and operated because we wouldn't be allowed to go to it until then anyway.
Right? We got plenty. We can go and we can just tell people this is the Babylon 5 conference to discuss up to season 2, episode 21. Nothing after that.
Let's see here. Well, no, see, I can't even, like, I was gonna say, like, we'll get like the dude that played Jinxo, and we'll get the dude, but I don't know if those guys come back or not.
That's right. We don't.
I don't know.
Well, I have 3 other comments I want to share, but they all have a common theme. And this is one we've talked about a couple of times, but these 3 people in the recent times have shared the impact that Babylon 5 has made on their lives.
Cool.
Yeah, they all kind of came in a succession, and it really hit me, so I kind of grouped them all together. On our YouTube, Violent Silence shared that it was something that got me really interested in screenwriting. JMS did a great book on it that featured the script for a pivotal season 2 episode. Not as dramatic of a change or impact as for other people, but it did lead to me being a harsher critic. Like, it didn't kill Star Wars for me, but it meant I couldn't miss or ignore the faults in it like I did as a kid. Then on our Twitter, Alyssa, who has an incredible Twitter name at Wacky Vorlon, and she says she's had that name from Twitter like since the nascent days of Twitter. So I'm good on you, Alyssa. But she says
when she still could have just been at Alyssa,
right? It was still, or Alyssa 1. Like, it was just, they were all out there, but still picked Wacky Vorlon.
I have a friend who's like at Josh.
Really?
Yeah. Or it's like at Josh W, I think is what it, like, it's that like easy and simple. And because he was one of those like day tours.
I'll try this thing out. I mean, it's got an egg. What could go wrong with a great egg. Twitter is the great egg. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Well, Wacky Vorlon, Alyssa says, Babylon 5 played a formative role in the development of my personal philosophy and ideals. I learned a great deal about how to live from the show. I got to tell you, Brent, I think it's amazing the show had this impact on people. I have not seen this yet, right? Like, what we have watched in this series so far would not teach me a lot about how to live. So I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, Alyssa, if you could write back to us, tweet us or DM us if you want to do it that way, anything that you're comfortable being shared, and tell us what it has, like how it has taught you to live, or like what things it has taught you to live. Keep it non-spoilers. But I'd really be interested to know, because I'm kind of on this page with Jeff there of like, what exactly have you learned? Because Jeff, that is exactly what we're searching out in this show. When we look for those Star Trek-like messages, we're not trying to compare it to Star Trek all the time. We're looking for those life messages that I think honestly should exist in most sci-fi, at least somewhere. So
last one I've got through our website, Babylon5first.com. That's the number 5 and the word first.com. Nathaniel reached out. Nathaniel said, while I consider B5 to be generally life-changing and influencing, there's a particular dialogue between two-ish characters in early season 3 that helped me deal with some of the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. Unfortunately, I can't say more without spoilers. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Appreciate that.
But look forward to you reaching that section. I've heard similar stories from a number of fans, so I think you will find that many have been touched by B5 in the way you describe Star Trek fans.
That's cool. And please reach out to us when we do get to that spot and say, this is what I was talking about, because we're a whole season away from that. And while I would love to tell you that I will remember this, I cannot promise that that will be the case. So I would love to hear that. We're kind of in a spot now, Jeff, where every once in a while we'll get a message from somebody who says, I've been waiting for you to get to this spot.
Yep.
And so it's kind of neat to know that there are still people waiting for us to get to more spots down the road, because we've started hitting those. And it's like, oh, yeah, we know now.
Yeah, we're also still so early in this series, you know?
Well, Jeff, you know, along with our game, Rule of 3, we have another game that we like to play here at Babylon 5 for the first time. And that's where we try to guess what next week's episode is going to be about based on the title alone, because we haven't read show descriptions or, you know, watched any trailers or anything like that. And this spot of the show, because that game happens towards the end of the episode, this is the spot where you and I take a look back at what we said last week that this week's episode was going to be about. So, Jeff, this honestly might be the hardest thing we do every week, because I'm just trying to remember what we said. But Jeff, do you remember what you said Spider in the Web was going to be, and how close do you think you were?
I remember very much what I said, because there was a fraction of a second that I thought I might be right, and then not at all. But I thought this was going to be Bester coming back, and Bester being set up like, look what a good guy I am. I'm so great. You must be the people that there's something wrong with. So there's some Psychor, sort of, kind of, and a Psychop in this one. That's about as close as I got. What about you?
I remember kind of reasoning it out. Like a spider in the web is somebody who's sitting around waiting to make a kill. And I don't know where I went from there.
Was it a Londo thing? You went with a Londo?
I think that's what I said. This is going to be a Londo Jakar episode. And it was not.
Well, hey, now that we have talked about how completely wrong we were about this one, why don't you, Brent, remind us about what this episode was actually about?
Well, all right. A spider in the web. Buckle up, because this one is pretty thick. Talia Winters. Hey, you guys remember her? She's our resident commercial telepath. Well, she has an old friend who's just come on board B5. Well, he's an old friend and an old mentor and a father figure and a client. His name is Taro Isogi. Isogi?
I think it's Isogi. Isogi-san. That's what she called him.
Yes, Isogi-san. And he is the CEO, I think he was the CEO, of a company called Future Corp, which is an Earth-based business that does stuff. And he has come all the way out to Babylon 5 from Earth to meet with a representative from Mars government just one planet away, so that they could negotiate a deal which could lead to Mars's independence from Earth. which some people back on Earth fear might actually be used to finance a new rebellion. But unfortunately, someone else back home really doesn't like this idea either. And by back home, I mean somebody who's hiding out in the future wasteland that we now call San Diego. It's a mysterious woman, and she's overseeing the commencement of a major operation that has 13 components deployed to Babylon 5. We're all 13 at Babylon 5. That's what I thought I heard, but I would be shocked if that was all. Anyway, regardless of that, there's also something called Control that is at the center of the whole thing. Now, what this person, we come to find out, has actually deployed in this particular case is an assassin to take out Asogi. He apparently got super cool Darth Sidious electric gloves for Christmas because he fries Asogi with a grasp of his neck, but he does it right in front of Talia, who stuns him with a mind scan, and he leaves her without harming her at all. Talia isn't really sure what the image was that she saw in his mind, but Sheridan and Garibaldi promised to protect her. She's going to need it because the bad guy was just ordered by Control to take her out. Maybe her personal security guard is actually going to need it because while he gets taken out just as easily as Asogi, Talia gets to scan this guy's mind again, and he starts to glitch. And this time, she can make out the image quite a bit better. It is a ship firing directly at the guy from his own point of view. You see, this guy, his name is Abel Horn. And Abel is now a space zombie. But when he was alive, he was one of the leaders of the Free Mars movement. But turns out he was killed in a battle when his ship was fired upon by an Earth ship. He has no other memories going on in his head right now, except for that one moment of his own death replaying again and again and again, which I think just kind of means it sucks to be a space zombie. Now, Sheridan finds out about this and suspects that he was part of something called Project Lazarus, which was a secret program where they would take dead or mostly dead people and turn them into sort of RoboCop Cylon type dudes. So the space zombie starts glitching all over the place and even goes to the Mars lady for help. He injures her, but he doesn't kill her. And when Talia comes to talk with her, space zombie goes after Talia one more time. And this time Talia gets an even deeper scan, and she sees the moment where he woke up on the operating table being turned into RoboCop. And there standing over him was a female psychop saying, "He's alive! He's alive! And he's ours! All ours!" Well, that's really about as far as we get because Sheridan and company come in and they Sparky gun him thing to death. That is until he activates his own self-destruct and he blows up real good. But, you know, everyone got out of the room and they're totally not on a craft in the middle of space, which would have had a hole ripped in it. So everything's going to be fine. Just a little mess to sweep up. And speaking of a couple little messes to sweep up, there's just two more things I want to talk about before we get out of here. Number one, Garibaldi needs some more information from Sheridan on this whole Project Lazarus thing because he's needs to know. Sheridan says it was a secret illegal organization ran out of the Earth government called Bureau 13, which is where we get a cut back to San Diego in the wastelands of that HQ place with the female Dr. Claw. She wants Control to make sure that the Bureau hasn't been compromised by this whole thing. And then we find out that she is that psychop lady from the operation. And then we find out that she herself is deceased. And lastly, speaking of Talia, it seems that her and Garibaldi have grown a little closer through this whole thing. Sure, we'll come back to that one in a future episode. But for now, that's the end.
What a breath of fresh air this episode was. Oh, God.
Right?
We've had just a line of stinkers up to this, and I enjoyed this. I was really thankful to be back to the Earth and Mars stuff going on. We've been so shadows focused and have only been kind of like spinning the pieces on the board around the shadow stuff to actually
Have we really been shadows focused?
Well, I was about to say, like, we haven't moved any pieces around. We've just like been, hey, look at this. As I spin it around, you can look at the different sides to it that we have. But this moved some stuff. Mm-hmm. It reminded us of, you know, the whole Earth thing and the Mars rebellion that was going on. And it moved things forward a little bit. It expanded the world a little more. I thought it was really well done, but damn it. shared it as just, I'm really into conspiracies, and there's this rogue operation that does the things that we're not willing to do. And he's saying this. I'm just like, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't. Bureau 13. Oh my God. If this isn't a direct, like a direct Star Trek, I'll say this is definitely Star Trek inspired by Babylon 5 moment here. That I need to apologize actually to one. I got in a pretty, this goes back a couple months ago. I got into a pretty, it has been.
Has it been that long? I mean, we've had lots of conversations over the course of our time here. People like, they ripped off Deep Space Nine. And I'm like,
I went to the mattresses with Matthew Ignatia, retro robot on YouTube, but on Twitter, like I went to the mattresses with him, and like I was getting pretty cocky too, with just like, oh yeah, a space station and a hole in space, so they're the same. And then this happened, and I'm like, oh shoot, oh no, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was on this show or a different show that I was talking, but I can remember having a conversation with a guy named Aaron, who is a writer on one of the current Star Trek shows that are out there. And one of the things Aaron was saying was he does not read anybody else's writing, refuses to, because if he's reading that writing and then he's putting down his own stuff, he can't be 100% sure that he didn't pick up an idea. Like, even if he's not copying, saying, hey, let me steal that idea and put it in here, or hey, the idea of a rogue, because look, here's the thing. JMS does not own the market on rogue organizations.
True.
You know what I mean? Like rogue organization's kind of a neat idea. Let's throw it in there. The fact that one is named Bureau 13 and the other one is Section 31, which, Jeff, go ahead and give us a buzz for both of us on this, because this is completely the whole thing. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that they're so closely named is like, like the Ducat and the Ducat thing, I can kind of be like, okay, that's a coincidence. This one's like, that's really close.
Yeah. I mean, literally, if it was Bureau Alpha Bravo or even Bureau 86, okay, cool. But wow.
Right.
Wow. This is, I think it was last week I was making fun of the Vanilla Ice thing, Vanilla Ice and Queen. This is that exactly. It says, well, there's another eighth note to it. I mean, it's a 31, not a 13. Come on.
I mean, the only saving grace is, but Section 31 didn't even come out till season 6 of Deep Space Nine. Like, it was so far into the run. And
I am tempted, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say I am tempted to go down a path of like talking about what Section 31 was and what it was intended for and what Bureau 13 is. But I want to save that for another time, because I don't know exactly what Bureau 13 is all about.
I was going to say, we don't know what Bureau 13 is. We can talk about what Section 31 is. Here's what I'll say. From the information we know right now, the two, while both are rogue organizations operating within the government, wait a minute. Is Section 31 a rogue organization?
It's in the Starfleet Charter. It is Section 31 of the Charter.
Right. It's not actually a rogue organization. It is a black ops organization for sure. But they're not actively working against the Starfleet government, and they're not working for their own betterment. They're actually, like, the things they do are for the betterment of that. Based on what we get the feeling here, this Bureau 13 really is acting to either subvert the Earth Force government or potentially take it over or have its own agenda. And there's a very different quality to those two things. But I mean, I can't get over the 1331 thing, man.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there.
And this is total Jeff with the tinfoil hat and the red yarn connecting everything back here, because there's no way this is tied. But seriously, it's Bureau 13 and Control. There's a whole season of Discovery dedicated to Control. And I even did a little bit of research. So this episode of Babylon 5 occurs in March 2259. Discovery went and chased down Control in 2257. So my theory is that Burnham and crew are actually behind Bureau 13. And that's going to be the continuation, JMS's continuation of Babylon 5 that people are clamoring to get onto the CW and everything, is actually going to be the crossover episode.
Wait, is it Burnham and crew, or is
Georgia,
it Georgia?
Or just straight up
Tilly?
Starfleet? Was it Starfleet? Maybe it's Prime Lorca that comes back and got, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
listen, what we have just discovered is that Star Trek and Babylon 5 occur in the same universe, side by side, and both exist. That's what we've just discovered.
We proved it last week with Barclay's holodeck program for everything, and then this week,
right,
that at the same time, Control is running all this stuff, and Control is out there trying to get the Red Angel to do some stuff and is taking over. I don't remember everything that happened in season 2 of Discovery. That was a long time ago.
Hey, Jeff, you know what? This is not a Star Trek podcast.
I know. See, this is why we have the game, and this is like we're at this 2. I got 2 in there. I got 1 left, but I'm going to ride this bad boy for a little while.
The thing. Is Control an artificial intelligence that's like super smart and controlling everything?
No idea.
That's what it seemed like, because that's what it is in Star Trek. And I was like, oh my gosh, is Control an AI? Because if it's an AI named Control, I need to see some non-Star Trek AIs out there also called Control. Like, I need this to be a thing that happens in science fiction and not a crossover.
Yeah, so far my hopes have gone from high to non-existent on this. So I'm just going to ride the train that there's a total crossover between these two at this point.
Or I mean, at least for the modern day stuff, that, you know, Kurtzman and the people that are creating Discovery also were Babylon 5 fans, and this is like their nod.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's an homage. It's their nod back to Babylon 5 rather than just like, we're going to steal your whole concept.
I would like that. So I have a theory so we're talking about Control and 13. So the Psychop identified herself as 13.
Yeah.
So, right. So this is 13.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, so it said she was deceased. And I think, I'm curious what you think. I figure it's either that's the record they kept. Oh, she's deceased. So, you know, just like falsifying records sort of a thing, which seems like a Bureau 13-ish thing to do. Or is she also a cyber zombie who died and they plugged a thing into her brain and she's, you know, Control is operating her in some way?
I think the implication is that she is also a cyber zombie. She's also a space zombie. I think that's the implication. Could it turn out either way? Absolutely. The writers have left that completely open. Who knows where that's going to go in the future and the way it's actually going to turn out. But I think the implication, and I think even the intent that they were going for right now, is that, yes, she is also a cyber zombie, and this Control thing is at the core of it.
And controlling them. Yeah.
What I want to know is, what are these 13 components? Because it says, you know, 13 components have been deployed, and I swear it said to Babylon 5. They're all in place. It said they're all in place, and they've been deployed to Babylon 5. I may have to go back. I've only watched this one once. I have not done a rewatch on it yet or anything like that. But this 13, and I'm just sitting here going, okay, if there are 13 of these components, let's assume that these components are space zombies.
Yeah. What else could they be?
What else could they be at this point, right? So there's 12 more of these space zombies. Okay, here's my tinfoil hat. Are we now moving into Cylon territory with these things? That people interacting normally are actually space zombies, might even not know that they're space zombies. And how are you going to tell the difference? Is Garibaldi in reality a space zombie?
Oh, wow.
Has he been replaced by space zombie? Maybe not even replaced. No, he can't be replaced. But, well, I get, because they got the changeling cloak things.
Not even the changeling net thing, but he was down and out in a coma for like, what, 3 episodes after he got shot in Chrysalis. And yeah, so Dr.
God.
Franklin maybe is part of this Bureau 13 thing. Oh, he needs a little more time.
Oh.
Hooked him up. That would break my heart. That would break my heart if Garibaldi turned out to be a Cylon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And he didn't know it. He was right, because they said, and they don't just take the dead, it's the mostly dead. You see, there's all the way dead, and then there's mostly dead. He's just mostly dead.
But it turns out his third favorite thing isn't actually tea, it's treason and insurrection at the behest of control.
I love the fact that they brought that joke back. Loved the fact they brought that joke back. I just want to say, Jeff, with your opening statement of this whole thing, I 100% agree with you. This is the episode I needed last week, to be frank. Like, I was mad at Babylon 5 last week. This is the episode I needed. Is this a great episode in the grand scheme of things? Because I can hear some of the Babylon 5 veterans being like, you guys really like this episode? Because it's not really a great episode. Like, we don't really love this one that often. I can hear people saying that. And like, this is an episode that I will simply say, if it's not a great episode of Babylon 5, this is a season 2 sci-fi episode that is marking the growth of the show.
Yeah.
Like, the show could be way better than what this episode actually is, but this is one of those episodes that is a step function on the right way to the show, because I tried to do the recap on this and make it smaller than it was, and I couldn't, because there were so many things that they packed in, and it was last week's episode didn't know what it wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? This episode knew exactly what it was. An espionage spy thriller. What the heck is going on? Why does Sheridan know all this stuff? He collects secrets. Dude, something's up with that.
Agreed. Like, there's a whole, like, I like to study, the Illuminati and the, Masonic lodges and the stuff. Like, it's fun. It's a fun hobby to study this. Then there's the person who does their own research, right? And I'm like, which one of those is Sheridan? Because if he's just a collector and studying and stuff, cool, that's neat. People are very rarely, we've learned this, very rarely what they appear to be on Babylon 5. So what are we going to learn about Sheridan that's not so great?
Well, he said he had to pull a lot of strings to get a name or to find out, like, what is he? He is more than just the captain of the Agamemnon who's been reassigned to Babylon 5. I need to know more about this guy's backstory. And also, I still want to know how he loses or how he gains a bunch of weight and still looks like that.
I don't know. He looks great. Looks really good.
It looks great.
When he's smiling, like when Ivanova's like, hey, I'll take care of the Takar thing at the beginning. He's like, it's good to be captain. And he's just smiling. I'm just like, God, he looks good. Look at that.
He does. He looks captainy, doesn't he?
I had one last thought on 13, the Psychop.
Yeah.
My theory is that she is Abby, the person that Talia was assigned to when she first got to Psychor, like her buddy that she was paired up with. We heard the story about.
Don't you think that Talia would have recognized her from her picture or from seeing her?
I think she did. I think she did recognize her. She went to the computer, like in the mind thing. She was like, could it be? And then she went like how, from just seeing that face, how does she go to the computer and look? If I see your face on the street and then I go to Google or DuckDuckGo and I like look up your face, I'm not going to find anything. But if I'm like, is that Babylon 5 for the first time's Brent Allen? Is that who that is? And I go look for that. Oh my gosh. Hey, is that Abby such and such from Psychor who became oh my God, yes it is. And that look on her face at the end. So I feel like we're going to have on the shadow side, the personal stake of Sheridan's wife having been killed by shadows. that'll pull him in. And then on the Earth, Free Mars stuff side, we're going to have Talia and the tie to Abby. That's going to be her personal stake.
Interesting. I have a question about Talia. A bunch of weeks ago, we had that episode. I forget the name of it now. It's the one where like the little girl was the telepath and she like had puberty and it manifested and
yeah, I think it was Legacies.
There you go. And her and Ivanova, like Talia and Ivanova were like arguing over where, and like Talia wanted to send her to Psychor. Didn't we have a whole episode where Talia met an old boyfriend who came in and he was being greatly abused by Psychor? And then he like blasted her with some sort of like, I'm going to give you like all of my gift. And like, that was supposed to supposedly turn her off to Psychor and like make her like all suspicious and kind of turn her against her and raise her psi level a bunch and all that kind of stuff. Did I imagine that episode?
Well, if we did, it's a joint hallucination. I remember the thing too. Like it happened, but apparently there's no fallout whatsoever, right? My lover can get basically, I mean, he ascended and it was super cool for him, but
right,
get chewed up, run through the ringer, and he tells her horrible things about Psychor, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know."
She gets it.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I want to send the kid to Psychor, and then, I have all these great memories of growing up with Psychor. I don't remember my mom and dad at all, but like I had Abby. That's so cool,
right?
I think with her too, not just the point of like how is she still pro Psychor, but at the end of that episode, she had the little bit of telekinesis. She moved the penny.
Yeah.
Right. So in this one, Abel's holding her down, and she freaks out, and she pulls a Harriman Gray. Pain. Right. She says, and he's like, "What are you doing, lady? Come on." She should have rocked him to the ground, given what we know from what was it? Mind War. From Mind War, that should have been devastating.
That was the episode we met Bester.
Yeah.
Right?
And all the Jason Ironheart stuff, and like it's almost like Mind War never happened. Right? We've gotten two mentions of Bester. Legacies, and then when dude who shot Garibaldi did the tip of the hat thing. That's it. And then Talia is completely unchanged from that whole thing.
Right?
Kind of a letdown.
I mean, if she was putting on an air because she didn't want to get in trouble, or she was still investigating or something, but I need to have Talia do something here because they set that up very specifically and they've done nothing with it. And I'm kind of mad about it.
Yeah. It's just, for a thing that was huge and early, we're going to introduce you to Babylon 5 with this and then let it go.
So what did we make of Talia straight up lying to Sheridan at the end of this episode?
I think it ties directly to what Ivanova was saying when he was asking her. That was such a cool interaction between them when, well, you know how I feel about telepaths. Yeah, you threw one out of the third story window. And then she's like, well, there was a pool. It's probably fine. He's like, yeah, I'm going to assume that you knew that pool was there. Like, that's the Ivanova we know. That's the Ivanova we love, right? Just throwing somebody out of a third story window. But she said very clearly, I trust Talia Winters, but she has an unhealthy loyalty to Psychor. And boom, she proved it right there. She's going to always choose Psychor, even though everything we just talked about, despite that, she's still going to be team PC.
And because Sheridan straight up asked her, like, hey, did you do this? And she looked, and you're going, yes, she did. And she goes, nope. I need to know where that is, like what that whole piece is with Talia.
And I think part of it too is that I think she was thinking, again, Abby was this thing. And so she had more investigating she needed to do before she was ready to say anything.
But I, as the viewer, need to know that. You know what I mean? And people out there are like, oh, just wait. I can't tell you because of spoilers. Just wait. And I'm like, awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Awesome. Don't tell us don't even tell us if it comes back around. Don't tell us if it never comes back around. We'll find out and we'll get mad. We'll talk about this again later. Did you have a problem with Talia agreeing to go to dinner with Asigo or Asogi?
Asogi.
I feel like I'm back to Ivanova.
Right.
Now.
Asogi. I did. And I had a problem with him hiring her for this.
Yes, me too.
The way it started, it just kicks off. They're like, oh, I'm happy to see you again. Okay, great. So they've got a professional relationship. They're happy to see each other. Introduce her to Amanda. Cool. They're doing business. But then goes as far to say a father figure. I think it's a conflict of interest. And I think going to dinner with him is cool. if you're also not acting as his commercial telepath.
Yeah. And I like the note I wrote, I was like, it seems unprofessional.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be inappropriate for her to go to dinner with him because she also is walking down the hallway arm in arm with him at some point. Now, and that one really, I felt the father figure-ness to that. Like it didn't feel romantic at all. That felt very Ivanova and Rabbi
Koslov. Yeah.
Koslov. You know, yeah.
I think.
Like it felt very that, it had that vibe to me. So her going to dinner, like I said, not inappropriate, just unprofessional.
And I think that carried through to the end. Like I liked the end where they covered for Amanda. They keep negotiating with Future Corp, do all these things. But Talia was so personally invested in making sure that his dream moved forward. Like she was moved to hug her at the end. She was so personally moved by it. I don't think that she should have. I mean, there aren't a bunch of commercial telepaths hanging out on Babylon 5. I get it. But Psycor has a very, very long list of very strict rules about how business is to be conducted. You'd think conflict of interest would be part of it.
Can we talk about the commercial telepath, though?
Yeah.
A little bit more? Because first of all, I don't recall ever hearing that as the phrase that she is a commercial telepath, which to me says, and this is exactly what she is, her services as a telepath are commercially available. You can buy her services. But they're in a negotiation. The Mars lady and Sogi are in a negotiation, and they're talking back and forth. And she says something, and Talia goes, "Nope, that's not at all what she just said." Like when you're in a negotiation, striking stuff, you have to play your cards close to the chest. There is a legit like, I don't need to reveal this to you right now, or you don't need to know this. And having a telepath there feels like that is actually not a good thing to me. Like I can understand why you might want to have that there as a negotiator, but like I don't know that I would agree to have one there because we just need to talk.
We've seen the commercial telepaths run a couple times, mostly in small deals back with, I don't remember Sinclair's girlfriend's name, Catherine Sakai.
Catherine.
Yeah. So like with dealings with her, you know, Talia was around doing stuff. I think my problem, I guess, with it, my wrinkle with it is there should be a telepath for both parties.
Right.
Like that was a complete,
or she should be declared neutral.
Or neutral. Yeah. Yep. No, you're not. Nope, you're not. Because it'd be like you and I sitting down to negotiate and me bringing a team of lawyers and you sitting there being like, I thought we were going to talk in good faith, man. Like what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that being said, I have zero problem with a guy like Captain Picard having a Deanna Troi as an empath to do the exact same thing for him.
Different, though, because I don't think it's like a commercial negotiation. Those are first contacts, diplomatic situations, potentially, you know, avoiding war and battle. I think the stakes are different. I don't think there's a reasonable expectation of I'm not going to cover every possible base, you know, or at least transparently.
I feel better knowing that it's okay for me to have a problem with the way that this thing works. Like this isn't Talia. This is just how it works in their society. Like I don't like having that in the way future stuff goes. I don't know. Maybe it would actually be helpful and prevent a lot of the shadiness that happens too. So.
I think that's part of the idea, you know, is like in the 23rd century, they're not negotiating in the same way that we in the 21st imagine negotiations. Like there's more transparency maybe, and hopefully a little more honesty maybe. I don't know, but it would, I think there's a better way they could approach it. But I'll tell you, I loved, you mentioned it, the Garibaldi and Talia interactions in this, I thought were so well done. Like they were a lot of fun. That scene in the elevator when he, like she's all sad. Her father figure just died and he's going to hit on her.
Right.
Pulls a Franklin, but she calls him on it, right? And then unlike Franklin, he gets the message and he's like, oh, you need a friend right now. So cool, I will be a friend. Like I'll do that for you.
Was he hitting on her though?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
You think so?
Totally.
See, I didn't pick up on that when they were first talking in the elevator. Like this was one of those, like it was the most sincere that Garibaldi has ever felt, particularly when it comes to Talia Winters. And he was just, and once she let her guard down and just let him be sincere, turns out they're kind of cool with each other.
I think it was after, because I forget what he said, but he said something about, well, hey, I can do this thing or whatever. And she was like, are you serious? Like, this guy just died, and all you're hitting me with is this whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, he lost this person, I'm just being a yuck. Can you tell me what that word means? And they're like, ha ha ha, because he took the feed, right? He's like, oh right. Yeah, this isn't the time. Like, you're not looking for that kind of comfort, right? I'm not going to take a page from Dr. Franklin and take you to my quarters because I feel like you need me to caress your face and kiss you, even though I'm a professional. Instead, he's like, oh, okay, I hear you. You just need a friend. You need somebody to joke with. Guess what? I am the man for taking care of that.
So are Talia and Garibaldi, because we have heard and we know that Jerry Doyle and whatever the lady actress name is who plays Talia, like in real life, were married during the production of this. Is this the writers like kind of putting them together? Are they gonna hook up as a character set? Like what do you think?
I've gone on the record on here a couple times on how anti-ship I am. We both hate that word. Yeah. Right. But I am all for these two hooking up. It makes sense. They're not in a chain of command together. They're barely even co-workers, right? They're just two people that work on Babylon 5, and they're awesome together. Like, they just had a fun chemistry.
Listen, I have been all for the Ivanova Garibaldi hookup. Like, I really have. And I still think that'd be a fun one. I'd love to see that as a relationship, because I think you could have a lot of fun with the dialogue and what that looks like. But I'm also all for Garibaldi and Talia, 100%.
I think he'd be a great partner. Like, he'd be a great guy to date, I think.
Speaking of Garibaldi, something I've never noticed before. As a person, as a human, he has very hairy hands.
Oh, yeah? Oh, my God. Could you imagine that?
How much does it hurt to take that thing off and on his body? Yeah. Like, also in real life, but even just like in universe, like, he's got to slap the thing on and take it off. Like that's got to be not comfortable.
I hope he gets hazard pay or something like that. That is rough.
Like, does he get Corel lotion as a part of his job benefits package or something? Or
I have one little kind of funny thing I want to bring up, and then we can start maybe talking about Abel and the whole story with him. But at the beginning, when Asogi and Amanda were meeting each other, right, and kind of laying their cards out on the table, he says, your great-grandfather, John, who piloted the first colony ship to Mars, would really like to see this thing happen. Did you do the math on John's name?
No.
Amanda Carter. So it would be John Carter.
Oh, my gosh.
It could just be a coincidence, but I was like, well done. Oh my God. That's funny. I think those were, because the movie, that god awful movie, came out just a couple years ago, but the books are they've been around a long time.
They've been around for a while. Right. Was that movie bad? I always thought that movie was, I think I've only seen it once, but I remember liking the movie and kind of knowing at the same time it was never going to get a sequel.
I don't have good memories of it. I don't remember a lot, but
I'm going to see if you can decipher one of my notes.
Okay.
Because I wrote this down and I don't remember what it means. I said, okay, the door gag was funny.
Yes.
Mr. Wizard, let the wizard have a go. I do not remember what this means, but it's written in my notes for some reason.
There's a way I wish this scene went down, but how it did go down was great. Sheridan had figured out that the little cyber zombie tracker thing would set off this weird kind of benign radiation, and thought they could track him down with that. But I can't get these computers to find it because it's this, obscure thing. And Garibaldi's like, let the wizard take over. I got this. Because apparently he's some sort of hacker that, never been a part of his character before, but he sits down, does the whole like crack the knuckle things, and and he's like, oh, you just do this, cross-reference to this database and the medical files, and there you go. And then the door opens and closes instead. And then he's like, oh, yeah, it's more complicated than you thought it was. And he walks off.
That's right. That made me laugh. I thought that was the door opening and closing, and like he goes to leave, but like he actually has to stop and like time himself up so he can get through.
I loved it because they called out in this one that Garibaldi and Sheridan don't have the relationship that Garibaldi and Sinclair had. So I like that they're taking these moments, to kind of build that.
Are you good with this? Like I am with this relationship taking time to develop.
100%.
Like I need to see Sheridan and Garibaldi come together, but I'm glad for that to take time.
I like how they've done it where Sheridan and Ivanova have some history, so they have a place to start, but they also have to rebuild it because it's been years or whatever. But he and Garibaldi, they don't know each other from Adam, and so they're having to build it. I really like the way they're doing it. I wish, though, in that scene, he would have set Sheridan aside and said, hey, let me show you how to handle this. See, all you have to do is call Ivanova and ask her to do it. I thought that would have been a cool thing for him to kind of prop her up. And then I'll remind us as the viewer that Ivanova is always right.
She is always right. I saw Claudia Christensen not too long ago. It wasn't last week. I don't know. Maybe it was a couple months ago. But she said somebody had tweeted out like Ivanova is always right. And she as a person was like, this is some advice I wish I would have taken more seriously when I was younger. I was like, that's funny.
That's good.
That's all right. I got two things before we get into this the much bigger discussion. One, so in the future they have tricorders.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In this world.
Oh, that's your 3.
Is it?
Yeah, and I only have 1 left.
That's okay. I'm good. I think actually I'm really good. I think
okay.
I'm fine.
I don't know if I
but they have tricord. Like, listen, we just said that they're in the same universe now.
Exactly. So it makes sense. Of course they do.
Yes. Okay, I tried to call this out in my recap just a little bit, but I really have to point this out. So what we have is a representative of an Earth-based company that wants to have a meeting with somebody from Mars, which galactically is like just right over there. And they're both going to travel across the galaxy in order to have this meeting. I'm like, that's like a toy maker wanting to meet with the president of Walmart in Antarctica.
Right.
So that they won't be overheard or whatever. Like, why? What? Surely you can find a place to meet that is not Babylon 5. Now, I know we have the sets existing here in Babylon 5, so it makes it easier, but still.
They threw a couple words at that, right? Like he even said, he's like, that's why I chose here, Babylon 5, to have this meeting. And yeah, because it is a neutral place for all the races and everybody to come and do business. But yeah, it's pretty, but go to Io, right? I mean, it's really, that was very much about, hey, we need to have some stuff go down with Talia here. We need a telepath around. We need it to impact people in Babylon 5. So we're going to do it there.
I get it, plot reasons, but I was just like, that is just stupid. Because here's what we know about jump gates. It's not like any sort of instantaneous teleportation technology that like, hey, I'm just going to pop over here and I can go across the universe and do that. Like,
and it's expensive. It's costly.
Right. And there is a time of travel from the jump gate to your point of origin or destination. Like that's not an easy necessarily effective way to hold.
It's kind of like, I'm up in the northwest corner of the country. You're down in the southeast corner of the country. And if we were going to get together, right, it would make sense for us to say, hey, let's meet in the middle somewhere, do a thing. What would be stupid is to say, let's meet in South Africa.
Right.
Like, that's just dumb, and it's what happened here.
All right. Last thing for me. Asogi was Mars's best hope for the future. My question, was he their last best hope for the future?
Well, no, because now we have Amanda Carter. She might be the last best hope, though.
And there you go. He was the best hope. She's the last best hope.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, what do you got on this, dude?
Not a lot, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's cool. Like the concept is cool. Let's take the leader of this terrorist organization, throw him in. There are obvious implications that happen from this. I thought it was, I appreciated a really minor callback they had in here because the note I took here, and this will be a deep cut for a lot of people, but the first time we see him is when Sonny roller skates past Xanadu to grab Asogi by the throat and choke him to death, and then he heads off.
Right.
Because Michael Beck was in Xanadu and was awesome. Okay, I'll get off that. But my immediate thought was, hey, that's what that slaver Gene Simmons guy did back in Born to the Purple, is he grabbed people and shocked them. And then when Sheridan and Garibaldi were like problem solving, he's like, oh, you mean like a slaver glove? no, this is a much bigger thing. I was like, oh, that's a cool.
That's where that kept, they said that, and I was like, I feel like I should know what that is, and I don't know what that is. Now I remember.
Yeah, I thought that was such a ridiculous thing in that Born, like, he's doing what? And then they pulled it in here. I'm like, what? Again? Oh, cool. Okay, they're doing it. He's got Darth Vader hands, so I get it. That makes sense. But he was a tool. Right. I mean, they could have put anybody there. It led to some good dialogue between him and Amanda Carter to do some stuff. For me, the best thing about Abel Horn was Michael Beck, the actor. He was called on to do some ridiculous stuff, body seizure things and whatever. It never looked ridiculous. Like, it looked, I bought everything he did.
I honestly thought he was Brad Dourif, like, the first 5 minutes that I saw him. And then, like, we got a real close up and I was like, no, that's not at all.
Yeah, like they colored his hair or put a wig on him or something. Yeah, because he had that quality to him. It was really great and really well played. If this was first season Babylon 5 and they threw this in here, acting would have ruined so much of this story, I think. But the acting was really good. And I think it took it, I think it really took it to a higher level. But my question was, he was phase 1, right? And then they said, go kill Talia because she saw it, and then we'll execute phase 2. So what's phase 2? And what are the other 12 elements that are out there?
Okay, so let's do that here. Let's recap what we learned, because this episode was obviously a bit of an information dump about what's going on. Okay, so there's a Bureau 13 that is a rogue agency within Earth's government. And they have 13 components, which we are assuming are space zombies. I'm saying that it's going to turn into a human. If it'd be awesome. I think human Cylon type.
Change the whole feel of this show.
Oh my gosh, it would. And I almost feel bad because I've seen Battlestar Galactica, and it feels like it'd be that story all over again. But it would be different here. I mean, we called out Garibaldi earlier. Like, he absolutely could have been one of those people. Anyway. So there's Psycor. Now, Psycor has an outpost on Mars, like a big, deep outpost on Mars, right? That nobody's supposed to know about. Also, they have, I'm assuming this might be Psycor. Maybe it's whatever this Bureau 13, actually, I guess it is Bureau 13. But you have a Psy-Cop or a former Psy-Cop who is in charge of this headquarters of this Bureau 13, or she is the 13th component. I'm not entirely sure. But there's an outpost in the San Diego wastelands, which is kind of a cool concept.
Didn't look a lot different than San Diego does today, by the way. No, sorry.
I'm just going to still over here in Florida in my swampland and let y'all have that over there. But there's a project called Project Lazarus that Sheridan somehow knows about, which I think there's some stuff there. And it takes dead people or almost dead people and turns them into zombies that Psycor or Bureau 13 can use to do their bidding while that body is kept in a perpetual state of reliving the moment of death. And if they start flashing out of that, they can glitch and they like shock back into it. But if things go really, really bad, then they can just self-destruct like they're a freaking clone.
Replicant? Is that where you're going? Yeah.
Replicants. Like there's something of that nature. Anyway, and there's that plan. Yeah, and there's a plan, and there's the other 12 components out there somewhere, which again we are assuming are more space zombies.
Yeah,
that's the
only thing I can think. That's the only thing I can think of. I think that we also know that the other thing we learned is the Earth government is actively trying to stifle anything that could lead to Mars independence or potentially bring up a thing. The matriarch of the Bluth family, who apparently was a senator, thinks that she can command Sheridan around. I loved how he stood up to her and he's like, yeah, that's not my job, lady. Back off. Yeah, that's kind of what we learned through this.
And this is apparently entirely separate from the whole Shadows thing, which we keep hearing about.
Yes, doesn't touch on it.
So we're gonna get this multi-fronted thing, which I still am not entirely sure that I understand the political setup. And nobody out there tell me, because I'm sure the show is going to make it more clear. So please, you don't have to explain it to me. But at this moment in my watching as of season 2, episode 6, I am not fully comprehending the political association of Mars with Earth. What is your understanding of how that whole thing's working right now?
I think right now Mars is a colony of Earth. So it's kind of a Puerto Rico situation, right? Where totally subject to a whole lot of things, you're not represented in the overall government.
Right. And there is a group that wants Mars to go be its own free thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously people who don't. And there's a provisional government on Mars, which is more than just a puppet government.
It's very active
by the Earth Force.
Yeah, very active.
Like they're very active in doing something. So, and there's been a rebellion where they've tried to go off and get free and do their own thing. I think that's my best understanding of it right now. Just trying to put the pieces together.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ties to Mars, right? Sheridan said that he and his wife had special friends on Mars. Talia had been stationed on Mars. Garibaldi had been stationed on Mars. So there's a lot of stake in the game for people there. I also think we talk about the political situation when we first saw 13 talking to Control, and we didn't know anything back when 13 was still Dr. Claw. They had President Clark on the TV.
Yeah.
In there. So she was watching the news apparently, and he was talking about something about, we're going to focus on Earth and Earth cultures to align with President Santiago's vision, really beating that drum where I think he's trying to
rewrite history.
Yeah. And that, hey, everything we're doing is what Santiago wanted all along.
Of course.
One quick note on Project Lazarus. I am more and more convinced, and in fact, I'm okay with people telling me this. Mass Effect, so inspired by Babylon 5. Project Lazarus is the program that brought Shepard back at the beginning of Mass Effect. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't played this game, but Shepard sort of he dies. He gets almost dead at the top of Mass Effect 2, and Project Lazarus rebuilds him. Very much straight out of this episode. Just it worked really, really well with Shepard.
Do people get as mad about Mass Effect ripping off Babylon 5 as they supposedly do about Deep Space Nine getting?
I am making those, like, I have never heard the two were in any way related, but this is like the third or fourth, like there are scenes of Babylon 5 that are played out in Mass Effect. So tell us in the comments, right? Are you upset about this?
Right.
Like, yeah. Because if you're not, here I go. If you're not upset about it, then it proves my point that it's more about timing than anything else. Had Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5 not aired simultaneously, we wouldn't still be having this conversation right now. Because we're not having it about Mass Effect. Or we are, and I'm just not included in them for some reason.
Right. I don't know, Jeff, it feels like we're going to continue to go down this rabbit hole of Deep Space Nine / Babylon 5, but let's save that for a future episode. Why don't we get to that part of the show where we boil this down and actually do the Star Trek-y thing and see if this episode has any of that Star Trek-y quality? Maybe there's a deep moral message to it. Maybe it's holding up a mirror to society. Is it giving us hope for a better future? I am going to discuss my side of it, and then I'm going to rate this on a scale of 0 to 5 deltas to see how exactly Star Trek this episode is. Jeff, you, on the other hand, when you're going to do your analysis, but I'm going to ask you to rate it on a scale of 0 to 5 Star Furies of how much you just enjoyed this episode. Jeff, I'll let you go first.
So I don't know if this was recency bias or not, right? But my initial reaction was that I loved everything about this episode. I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. But on my second watch, it was still super, super good. Just not as good as I first thought.
Yep.
We're seeing some of the older Ivanova. Again, the great attitude, that swagger, that confidence that she has. And I loved what we got in Garibaldi. This was about, like I said, this was about reminding us about the Earth and the Mars stuff and then moving it forward a little bit, introducing Bureau 13. But I really enjoyed this episode. And for me, the espionage stuff was done really well. It made sense, I mean, like when I watched it the first time, I felt like things were a little strung together and maybe didn't make sense. But on the second watch through, there were just a couple cuts that, like when Talia's bodyguard got killed, it was just like, oh wow, that was kind of out of nowhere that happened. Okay, that's just an editing thing, but that was all fun. Garibaldi and Talia though are what really moved this up for me. without the Garibaldi and Talia stuff, this might have been like a 2.5 for me. But with that, I'm going to give this one 3 Star Furies.
So this episode, I think for the first time had a real Star Trek-y type message to it. And I'm going to fixate on a single line because I've noticed this is kind of how Babylon 5 does it. It sort of throws it out there and then it just leaves it and lets you pick up on it. We could talk about respecting life and what do you do with the dead bodies and all of that. I don't think that's really it. But there's a line where the senator lady talking to Sheridan, she says this, she says, practicality is more important than principles. And I went, oh, that's what this episode's going to, and she said it so early. That's what this episode's going to be about, is them exploring that concept. Are your principles, or better, do your principles override the practicality of just getting it done? You know, and we have seen that done and played out in Star Trek so often. You know, when the rubber meets the road, are you going to stick to your guns? I'm always reminded of Kirk's words. I think it was at the end of Corbomite Maneuver, where he says, it's time to see if our high sounding words actually mean anything. Right. We see this happen in Voyager all the time with Janeway. Like you and I were talking about before we went on mic tonight, like anytime the Voyager crew gets off kilter of the Starfleet values, the Starfleet principles, things go bad. It's the sticking to them that sees them through in the end that has held them together. Certainly in Next Generation, we see it all the way through. We see this again and again. Even now in Prodigy, we're seeing it a lot in that. Did they do anything with it afterwards? That's what's been running through my mind. Like, so she says this line, practicality wins out over principles. And we have to sit there and go, no, it doesn't. And this is going to show. I don't know that they showed a whole lot of principles in this particular episode. Like, again, this episode seemed to be much more of an information dump, but the fact that they brought that up gives it a lot of weight to me. And I'm sure if we were to really sit here and dissect it even more, we could dive down that rabbit hole. And I'm not sure if the writers intended to go there or not, so I won't. But I will give this one 2.5 deltas because they mentioned it. They brought it up. I don't know that they landed the ship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't bring it all the way home, but they floated it out there. And certainly I think they played with those ideas a little bit through. They just never went anywhere with it to kind of, they didn't give you the guy who is betraying their principles and just working on practicality, and then the person who's struggling with should I or shouldn't I? Like, we didn't have that. It wasn't that clear of a thing, you know? So yeah, I'm going to go 2.5 deltas.
I like that. I think, you know, especially back in the early episodes that we did, we awarded some deltas based on what, like, our optimism or pessimism about what we think is going to happen. And I think it's really easy to see this one being an information dump, introducing some new players and things that they have that theme. And I can very much see that Sheridan playing in that space of conspiracy junkie being where some of those themes do play out through this story arc, where, you know, we could this, but they're doing it this way. And I can't let that happen because I believe, like, I could see this being the road paved for Sheridan to really drive home some of those messages.
I really kept trying to find it in the Bureau 13 stuff, in the like that 13 components. Like, I didn't know if we were going to see her again later in the episode or the San Diego thing, but that kept running through my mind after I heard that, of like, this organization, whoever these people are, they're taking the practical side, and we're going to see our Babylon 5 crew have to struggle against the principled side.
Yeah.
And it like I said, it never really materialized. So that's where I really wanted it to be, but that was, I think, me trying to force it, admittedly. Well, with that, Jeff, here in season 2, we've started doing something where we are ranking the episodes. And for the first time, Jeff, something's going to have to fall out of the top 5. We are going to do this. We're going to set this one. We're going to rank this episode amongst its peers. This is going to be the absolute 100% completely accurate, definitive ranking of Babylon 5 season 2. Jeff, where are we going to put Spider in the Web? Currently, let me just remind us. Number 1 is Points of Departure. Number 2 is Geometry of Shadows. Number 3 is Revelations. Number 4 is A Distant Star. Actually, the 5th spot is still blank because we kicked The Long Dark out last week and didn't even let it sit in the top 5.
This will be the first time we actually have a top 5.
Right.
And I'm going to put A Spider in the Web in spot number 2, right behind Points of Departure.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's exactly where I was hoping you would put it because reasons.
Yeah, it's a great episode, but so is Points of Departure.
Yeah. Good episode. It makes me eager to see next week's episode now.
Exactly. And there's a lot more to come.
Not because I want to get this one out of my mouth. Like, I don't want to like just move on because this one sucked. Like, I'm now excited to continue on with the story.
It's a good point because I think that's where we've been the last couple of weeks. Well, Brent, that's it for A Spider in the Web. Next week, we get to play our game now. Next week, we are watching Soulmates for the first time. Now, we've never looked ahead. We've never seen these before. We've never talked about them. No trailers, no synopses, no pictures, no anything. Based on the name alone, Brent, what do you think Soulmates is going to be about?
All right, I'm going to continue to speak this into existence until it actually manifests. We are due for Londo and Jakar. This is going to be a Londo and Jakar episode. I will even accept a Londo or Jakar episode, although I personally prefer Londo. Could this be Londo and Jakar being soulmates of each other? Not necessarily in a romantic way, but in a way that they're like inextricably linked together, kind of a thing. Hopefully it's not Talia and Garibaldi, because for both of them we've had like somebody from the past come up. Like with Talia we had Jeremy Ironside. Jeremy Ironheart.
Jason,
was it Jeremy?
Jason.
Oh my gosh. Jason, you know who I'm talking about. Dude who ascended. Yeah. That's who we had. Yeah. And then with Garibaldi, we had his ex-wife who went off and did the Castaway thing where she got married to somebody else. We've had both of those. So hopefully it's not like that. I do want to see a Londo and Jakar episode. And does maybe Londo finally finds a new, didn't he say he already has like 3 wives? Maybe he finds a new wife. Is there, wait a minute. Is there a thing in Centauri culture where almost like Denobulans, like you get 3, but in order to get a new one in, we've got to bump one of the other ones out? And that's, this is my soulmate. I've got to, and so now we get to, did we meet one of the wives before?
No, I think we saw their pictures.
Yeah. And he loves his wives, doesn't he?
Yeah. Like the horsemen of the apocalypse.
Right. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Londo and Jakar, but Londo has met a new girl and he's fallen in love and he's got to kick out one of his old wives to try to make room for a new one.
So I feel like the more you talked, the closer you were going to get to my guess. And I think we might be able to meld them together because I thought this was going to be the sequel to Born to the Purple and Adira, who he's sent off, to go do stuff.
Yes, her. I liked her.
Yeah, exactly. She was great. So I think Adira is going to come back and they're soulmates. But I want to add that onto yours that she's going to be that's going to be the drama. Is this young former slave is going to take me, a Malari wife, and we're maybe get one of those. So we will marry our predictions in an episode where predicting will be about marriage.
And it's Jakar is going to be floating around somewhere.
Of course. That's
he'll
be the best man. He's got to plan the bachelor party. Well, that's it. We're going to find out next week right here. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it more than you can possibly know. If you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you're listening or watching us. And if you haven't already, run over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. I love reading your reviews here on the podcast. With that, Brent, until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
You want to know what my third favorite thing in the universe is?
Oh my God. Sure. Yeah, sure.
Interrupting your closings.
Oh, you do. You're so funny. Well, hey, peace and long life.
It's my first time.